In this video, I'm gonna talk about how you could tune your bait casting reel so you cast super duper far. In the last few videos of me taking this reel out to go cast frogs, and many of the times I am pretty much spooling myself, and some of my subscribers have asked me, how do I get my bait casting reel to cast so far? Well, there's a few things that you need to do in order to cast super duper far. Obviously, the first one is reel tuning, and a couple other things. It all has to be related to tackle selection. In this video, I'll break down into a couple sections. We'll first talk about tackle selection. We'll talk about reels. I'll break down what's a good reel for casting distance. Then we'll talk about line choices. Then we'll talk about rod choices. Then we'll talk about lure choices. And then we'll jump into tuning a bait caster for casting far distances. And then after I show you guys how to tune it, we'll go right back out in the water and I'll show you guys a few casts. So let's kick this video off with tackle selection. Since I'm holding the reel here, let's talk about this reel. Now, not all reels are created equal. There's many parts of a reel that will allow you to cast lures a lot easier. And the first thing I want to talk about is the spool. Now, let me open this guy up for you. And by the way, this is the KastKing Speed Demon Pro, second iteration. If you look at this spool right here, look at all the slots drilled into it. Okay, that is pretty sick. And that actually reduces the weight of your spool, allowing you to cast lures a lot easier. It allows it to rotate faster. And the initial startup of that cast, it pretty much have less resistance than, let's say, a heavier spool. And this spool design is pretty cool too. It's a short shaft. You can see that it doesn't have the extended shaft into the tension knob. They have advertised this to increase casting distance, and as you guys have seen, since I have purchased this reel earlier in the season, it's been doing pretty darn well casting distance wise. If you guys have a reel that doesn't have these features, the short spool shaft, or a lot of drill slots onto it, no worries. There's actually things you could actually do to improve your casting, which is you could always change the bearings out to ceramic hybrid bearings. Ceramic hybrid bearings, they could allow it to run dry, so it actually have less resistance. And also the ball bearings in there, they are ceramic rather than stainless steel or steel. Since it's lighter, the balls are lighter, it actually takes a lot less force to even start the rolling process. And that could potentially help you cast further. And I said potentially because that's not always the case. It really depends on your other tackle selection in order to cast that extra far distance. The next thing I want to talk about is line. Line diameter is really important. A lot of people tell you, hey, use 50, 60 pound test line. Well, technically, if you use that thick of a line, that technically shortens your casting distance in multiple ways. First and foremost, if you have thicker line, that means you can spool less capacity into your spool, therefore you have a shorter distance. Secondly, because the lines are thicker, lightly it's going to have more drag in the air, especially on those windy condition days. That thicker line is going to catch onto air. Also, it's heavier, and that will reduce the casting distance. So technically, thinner line is better, but beware, don't go too super thin, because what happens is you have too much line and it's too light, and when you cast super hard, what happens is there's too much line when it's close to max capacity, and it's technically going to be feeding too much line out at one time, and then you get something we call bird nesting, basically backlash. So I use 40 pound test line. I think it's a sweet spot for frogging, especially in those lighter cover. I would go to 50 pound test line if I have anything that's super, super thick. Heavy, dense stuff, gotta go a little thicker. Next thing I want to talk about is rod selection. Since I am frog fishing, I have been using at least a medium heavy rod, or right now I have a heavy rod. I have the KastKing Spirelli, and that's the rod that you saw in the beginning of the video, and that rod is rated heavy. What's really important when you guys select rods, you guys want to select a rod that's based on the technique you're using and the lures you want to throw. Each rod does have their lure and line recommendation, and if you guys use whatever is recommended here within that one section of your rod, that will allow you to cast the furthest. So as a frog fisherman, you want to throw something around 3/8 and up as rated on this rod. And the frogs I usually throw is the 3/8 to a ½ ounce mark, so which is perfect. The next thing I want to talk about is lure choices. Since we're talking about frogging, we're going to start with frogs, and then I'll give another good example for non-frogging folks. But anyway, let's start with this frog right here, your typical frog that you see across America. This is a Boya Pad Crasher, silicone legs. Here is a frog that I throw a lot in my videos, this style of frog from Asia. There's no strands and the weight is placed pretty much same area, but you can see there's a huge difference between these two frogs. No legs and legs. And this guy right here is gonna cast way further than this guy out of the box, even though they're similar weights. This is 14 grams, which is a little under a ½ ounce, but I have modified it, added some rattles. So this is actually heavier than this guy, but this guy's still gonna fly further. And the reason why is weight placement. The weights are placed pretty much the same area as you can see, but because leg strands, when this thing fly out, the heavier spot wanna fly out first. But with the legs out in the way, it's actually gonna reduce the casting distance, especially on those windy days. This guy here is pretty much aerodynamic. It's gonna fly straight out, no legs, no nothing. The weight's all the way at the end. And the key thing is the weight is all at the end of your line. That will allow you to have the maximum casting distance. Now, I'm gonna give you a totally different example and you guys will see what I'm talking about. Here is a Texas rig lure, okay? You have your cone weight right here, you have your lure at the end. The weight is not at the end. So when you cast out, what happens is you cast this way, the weight is the heaviest, so it wants to fly out this way, going this way, right? Try to reach the end first. However, because this lure is right here, it's making this weird bend, just like that. And that actually creates a lot of drag in the air and giving a lot less casting distance as well as casting accuracy. Super duper popular rig. Everyone uses it, but this thing right here can cause backlash to beginners because of that reason. Here's a better rig. It's called a Jika rig or jig rig. Okay, this is a homemade version, so if you guys want to learn how to make this, you guys can check out the card in the top right hand corner. So here's the structure of a Jika rig. You have the weight, you have a split ring right here, which this is where you actually tie your line on a split ring, and then you have your hook and you put your lure right here. So when you actually cast, again, the heaviest thing will want to fly out first. And that is this tungsten drop shot weight casting style. And it's gonna fly this way. And because the lure can free swing backwards, it's gonna trail right behind, allowing the weight to actually fly out first. This will give you your casting distance as well as accuracy. But anyway guys, this concludes the tackle selection. As you see, not all lures are created equally. That's why a lot of people like to cast rattle traps as beginning lures on baitcaster because it's so condensed and the weight is pretty much consistent all around. But for some lures like Texas rig, these rigs right here, you know, the weight right there is not optimal location compared to, let's say, a lure like this, the Jika rig. All right guys, so we're gonna talk about tuning this bait casting reel. This is the KastKing Speed Demon Pro. It's a magnetic brake system. All right, I'll show you guys very quick. It has 9 magnets right there. And when you turn this brake dial right there, what it does is it goes either further or closer to the spool right there. And the closer it is, the stronger the brakes. All right. So for you guys to tune your baitcaster, I know a lot of other bait casting tutorials, they'll tell you to tighten this tension knob all the way, set the brakes down to 0, then you hit the thumb bar, let the lure drop, and if it doesn't drop, you slowly loosen the tension knob until the lure starts rolling off your baitcaster, blah, 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 blah. Let's just stop right there. That is wrong. That is for beginners, and it doesn't really give you guys a guideline on exactly what else to do. So I'll give you guys the rundown on how to tune your baitcaster to cast far. The first thing you want to do is loosen the tension knob, and you want the tension knob loose as possible so that it has close to free spool so the lure could fly out as fast as possible. But you don't want it too loose because when you have too loose, this is what happens. Listen to this. You hear that? And I'll make it looser so you can hear it better. See that? This spool right here is moving left and right, and that is bad because what happens is while this thing is shooting out line while you're casting, what happens is this spool could move, it could touch the side of your reel, and that will stop the lure from flying. It'll give a sudden jerk and cause the lure to just drop, and you might get some backlash. It's terrible. So yes, we want to loose, but we don't want it this loose. So what you want to do is slowly tightening the tension knob until that sound goes away. So just turn it a little bit, wobble, wobble, turn it a little bit, wobble, wobble, turn it a little bit. Okay, getting closer, closer, very light, still a little bit, And presto, this is where you want it for most of your lures, especially the lighter lures. You have it just at the point where this does not wobble. If you actually throw super heavy stuff, you may want to tighten your tension knob a little bit more. But we'll stop from right here. This is great for frog fishing, so the 3/8 ounce to 1/2 ounce, or if you guys are into bait finesse system, which is ultralight bait casters, you know, bait caster with shallow spools, you also want to achieve this setup right here. Next thing, let's talk about the brakes. You want to control the spool from overspooling. So I would say, depending on the lures you're throwing, and if this is your first time doing this, I would want to jack up the brakes to, let's say, 80%, okay? And you want to do easy soft cast, underhand roll cast, or even overhand cast, that's fine. This is not a way to tune your bait casting reel for skipping. It's gonna do crazy backlash. This is only for casting far distances, so stick with underhand roll cast, as well as some maybe backhand cast and some overhand cast. So yes, we want to keep everything at 80%, and you'll notice when you wing it out there that the brakes will do all the work. Likely when you cast the lure out, it's gonna land, it's gonna hit the water, and this thing will just stop spinning. If that is the case, what you want to do is increase your casting strength and keep doing it until you start to feel that it kind of overspool a little bit, which is backlash. If it doesn't backlash at all, that means your brakes are too strong and you want to lower the brakes. In order to be able to cast your furthest distance, you don't want to rely 100% on the brakes. You want to be able to cast and still have a little backlash, and you will have to use your thumb to control the rest. But as a beginner, I advise relying on the brakes is okay. And eventually you want the maximum distance. You want it basically a one click under the point where it start to not backlash, and that's where you'll go. And a lot of times when I fish my frogs on this reel so far, and this is a new reel for me, and I am very, very amazed by this KastKing Speed Demon Pro. I have my setup at 7 brakes, and I'm able to spool myself with the KastKing Spirale, the heavy action rod. So anyway, that is how you tune it. Let's get out there and I do a few casts so you guys can see. I give you guys a closer look to my lure, and we will conclude the video there. This is what you have to do. First off, you get your rod reel ready, then you do a roundhouse kick. Bam! That's how you do it. Here we are, the KastKing Speed Demon Pro. I got the KastKing Spirale, same rod that I showed you guys in the beginning of the video. 7.5 foot, heavy action, fast tip. But yeah, this thing is so cool. It's actually a spiral wrap. So you can see the first guide aligns to the reel, but eventually it rolls to the left, and eventually the guides are all at the bottom. So it's interesting stuff. So anyway, let's just double check. I just want to show you guys the line. It's not full capacity because I've been messing around with it, changing lures, getting snagged, but it's still a pretty good capacity since it's a 40-pound test line. And let's see if I can spool myself. So same concept again. I'm just gonna mess up everything here so you guys can see. I'm gonna cast with the brakes up high as I recommended, 80%. You guys see that this thing's wobbling. Tighten it, tighten it, tighten the tension knob. Still a little clicky. A little bit, should be right there, okay? And I'm gonna just put that 80% right there, and I'm gonna do a soft cast. And as you see, it kind of overspooled a little bit, which is good. Kind of want that. So your next cast is gonna be a little harder. And you guys do hear a little wind. And this time I'm actually gonna put the camera up a little higher. All right. All right, I had to thumb it because it was coming out. You can see that there's a lot of line that went out. Okay, but now I'm gonna lower the brakes to 7, and you'll see that it will go even further. By the way, this frog is not the same frog you saw in the beginning of the video. This frog is actually very similar. I'm gonna show you guys close up, and this guy is 13 grams versus the other one is 14 grams. So this is under 1/2 ounce. So if I could spool myself, woo, that'll be awesome. The wind is blowing lightly right now, so let's see. You hear that? Ooh, look at that, far distance. Now I'm gonna try lower the brakes one more time. As you see, I can reel this frog up so quick because this speed ratio on this reel is so fast. I'm gonna jack the brake down just a little bit more, just one click, so 6.5. it touched the ground, I popped it, but you can see pretty much close to spool. So if I had full line, I probably wouldn't spool myself. Maybe, but it's still gonna hit around that distance, which is very impressive. Now, those 2 casts right there were all underhand casts, roll casts, okay? So now I'm gonna do an overhand cast. And I actually feathered that because I felt like it was a little too fast right in the beginning with my thumb, but it's still pretty much near the end. You see that? So there you go. The 2 casts, and the way to tune your bait casters so you can cast very far. Oh, no, I gotta say super duper far, all right? We're gonna keep with that term right there, super duper far in the entire video. So guys, I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial on how to tune your bait caster and cast far as you can. Nope, super duper far. It's all about tuning your reel, selecting the reel and a rod, line, and lure combination. All those things together will get you maximum distance so you can cast super duper far. I thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any questions, leave me a comment below. Peace out.